out in the book. So inshallah, you'll be provided with pens as well. And then inshallah, once you've been given these ustads, I will start then inshallah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu alayka ayyuhan nabi. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Let me try that again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. MashaAllah. I was worried there that maybe you brothers hadn't eaten, but alhamdulillah, by a second response it seems that you have, inshallah. Whilst, as just to echo what Brother Gulfan said, which is that the books that are being provided, A, they are for your use, but B, do treat them with the due respect they deserve. These books, a lot of effort has gone into producing them, both time, both cost, and it's a gift from the teacher to all the students here. So that's a gift coming from Sheikh Ahmed Abag to each and every single participant here. These books normally retail about £7, £7.50. So again, alhamdulillah, it's a blessing for each and every one of us, myself included, that we have been given this book. And the blessing will only really manifest itself as we progress throughout this retreat. As you begin to see what the book contains, you'll understand a bit more to what its value is. So just be mindful of that as we progress. Can I just ask, as the brothers are giving out books, please can everyone that is here in the retreat ensure that they have a book and they have a pen, because this next session is going to be interactive. So inshallah, whilst the brothers are just giving out the benches and the books, let's just take a few moments for each person to just come into the presence of Allah. Just again refresh your intentions as to why you're here, and just focus for a short time, inshallah, while the brothers give out the books, and then we'll commence. Has everyone got a book? If you have not got a book, can you please raise your hand? If anyone does not have a pen, can they please raise their hand? Brother, just someone at the front here. Inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so everyone has a pen, everyone has a book, and as Brother Gulfan requested, everyone's written their name on that book. If you need any help with that, to write your names, let me know. I'm sure I can get one of the brothers to assist. Now, just as a final point, so this book, it's not something that when you go to sleep tonight, that's it, you forget about where you put it. It's a working document throughout this retreat, so you need to keep this book with you, and you need to utilize it as well. There's no point just using it now for this session, and then when you all go back to bed, that the next day, i.e. for the next session, when we're all sitting here, and I look around and I think no one's got their book with them. You know, so just be mindful, they all look the same as well, so think about where you're going to put them, please. Okay, inshallah, we're going to commence with this particular session, which is referred to as the obstacles. Now, rather than stating the obvious, inshallah, or people reading from the screen, what is this session? This is going to be an interactive session, but my question first and foremost to the participants here is an obstacle to what? What will we be speaking about? So Nuran, don't put the slide up yet. That's okay. So if this session is going to talk about obstacles, my question to everyone here is, what will I be speaking about? An obstacle to what? I can hear spiritual. What does that mean? Someone else? Or elaborate. If there's a microphone, inshallah, please pass that around. So who says spiritual? Put your hand up. Yes, brother.
Whether it's physical, emotional, or other capacities to reach to the realm that we're going to be going through.
Mashallah. Anyone else? I want to hear from someone else as well. I'm going to do a session on blockages, and my question to you is, blockages to what? Unveiling the unseen. Anyone else? To yourself? The reason I ask this question is very simple. The question will determine whether you actually understand your objective as to why you're here. Quite simple. If the previous two sessions, I would, inshallah, by sitting in the previous two sessions that you had, you should now be clear as to what your objective is. Because an obstacle is something that is getting in the way of your objective. So when I ask one more time, I'm expecting, inshallah, a flurry of responses. And these, we're going to talk about obstacles. Obstacles to what? Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. So I've heard 3 different answers, which means that there's almost 3 different objectives happening. I've heard pleasure of Allah, I've heard closeness to Allah, and I've heard seeing and tasting. They're all, mashallah, lovely answers, all lofty answers. The seeing and tasting in particular, I'm not sure if he's talking about the dinner, I'm not sure if he's talking about the food or whether it's something else. But ultimately, that's the closest. And now, just let's take a moment and just focus on this for a moment. The reason that each and every single one of you are here, the spiritual world, i.e. to experience an unveiling of the spiritual world. Now, whether the ultimate goal thereafter speaks about getting close to Allah or attaining the pleasure, we can speak about it later. But the experience or to have an unveiling, that's particularly the reason and the focus of the next 4 days. And always have that in your mind, because as Ustaad Majid mentioned in his presentation, quite clearly is that the expectation, so here the brothers or the Ustads are teaching under the tutelage of Shaykh Ahmed Abad, with their objective is that they will assist you in any way that they can to get you to that objective of experiencing unseen. And what do they ask of you in return? It was on the final slide that Ustaad Majid had. What was that? What are they asking from you? An empty glass. MashaAllah. The brothers here have got really beautiful answers. What else? Just hear and obey, basically. Whatever they teach you, just follow. It's as simple as that. If there's conditions, it's only 3 to 4 days. And we'll come to talk that in a bit more detail. Okay, so we've established now what the objective is, and I'm going to speak to you now about the key obstacles that can arise when you're looking to attain that objective. So again, over to you. What type of obstacles, or what could be an obstacle in attaining that particular objective, i.e. seeing and experiencing? Just raise your hands, inshallah. Bad behavior with people? If the mic doesn't get to you, inshallah, I'll just repeat the answers. So the one brother said, bad behavior with people. Anything else that can be a blockage or an obstacle to you attaining your objective? G? Bad thoughts in the mind. Okay, interesting. Good. Anyone else? Repeating sins. Brother Imran mentions. Yes, inshallah. Just raise your hands, please. Then I can just speak. Yes, brother. G? Obeying the nafs. Okay, interesting. Anyone else? Emotions being angry. Okay, mashallah. Okay, well, let's just pause there for a moment, because interestingly enough, all the answers that someone has said, whether it was being unkind, someone mentioned, committing sins, obeying the nafs, all of those relate to who? And someone mentioned emotions. They relate to who? Yourself. They relate to a component of yourself, which then, by the grace of Allah, brings me on to my next point, which is all of those obstacles or those issues that people mention, that you mentioned here in this room, they all relate to yourself. So which then asks is, what are you made up of? What do you consist of then, you as an individual? Someone mentioned sin, someone mentioned emotions, someone mentioned having bad thoughts. Amongst that is the answer, actually. So again, I just want to, because I'm mindful of the time, and that you've all had, mashallah, a good lunch, and then this is when the body can just try to tuck in slightly, and then they're looking at the clock. So it's going to be an interactive session because I need some response back from you. That way I understand your understanding, and then we can move on. Or if I don't get anything from you, I'm thinking you're not understanding, and we carry on the same point. So inshallah, that hopefully put some impetus in the responses. So coming back to the point I asked, what are you made up of? What do you think?
Body, mind, heart and soul.
Inshallah. If brothers could raise their hands, that would be appreciated as well, inshallah. Yes, brother.
Feelings and emotions.
Feelings and emotions, yes. So which relate to what the brother mentioned here, the heart, for example. So, Brother Nasser, can you just repeat that again? Maybe just wait for Brother Zafar to bring the mic, inshallah.
Body, mind, heart and soul.
Absolutely. Body, mind, heart and soul. That is what effectively makes up you as an individual. You're made up of your body, the components of your body, the particular organs, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. You have a mind from which you think. You have a heart through which you feel. You have emotions, jealousy, anger, love. You have a soul and you have a nafs. And we won't get too caught up in the subtleties of the two, but we'll talk about that, inshallah. Now, that's actually just one obstacle. And now, inshallah, I'll ask you all just to turn to the slides for a moment. So, if they're up on the screen. Now, there are what we effectively refer to as 7 major obstacles. Now, if anyone who has a chance to actually look at the book, or anyone has been on one of these retreats before, they know that we normally only mention how many? 6. So there is a 7th that we will discuss today, and I will talk in a bit more detail about that when we come to it. But the 6 that I've listed here are the ones that were just mentioned, that we all mentioned, which was your body, i.e. you. You are an obstacle, whether that's through your body, whether that's through your mind, whether that's through your heart. That is an obstacle. Your spiritual relationship with Allah, that can be an obstacle as well, i.e. the type of yaqeen that you have with Allah. Problems in your life, major life problems, they can distract people from Allah. They can also do what? They can also bring you closer to Allah. Yeah. So these are ones that we're going to focus on, the ones that take you away from Allah. And then there's unlawful wealth that has a big impact on your relationship with Allah. Marital problems, very big problem. And then relationship with parents, siblings, and friends, or colleagues, people that you closely interact with. If you have issues with them, or there's problems there, then that can cause an issue with your relationship to Allah, and thus impact that objective that you're seeking. And the final obstacle is submission. And we'll talk about that particular one as we get closer to it, inshallah. So, how is your body's relationship with Allah? How does your body interact with Allah? i.e., how can it be a distraction from Allah? Just raise your hands. Brother at the back. Eyes. How can they be a distraction? You can look at unlawful things, absolutely. So basically, in a nutshell, what the brother's saying is that your eyes, i.e., they can lead to a what, effectively? A sin. So that causes a blockage to Allah. So now this is where, so the question for each and every one of you is to ask is, am I obeying Allah or am I disobeying Allah with your tongue? How can you obey or disobey Allah with your tongue? Brother? Talking ill of people. Are you backbiting? Absolutely. How can you obey Allah with your tongue? by giving them dua. Absolutely, reciting the Quran. There's a lot that you can do also with that organ. And then so forth. And there's 7 that are listed here. So we have the tongue, the eyes, the ears, the hands, the feet, the stomach, and modesty, i.e. your private parts. All of those 7 organs can keep you distracted or become a blockage in your path to Allah. Now, at this point, can I ask every person here, if you could just turn to page 45 of your booklet, and this is, and also we'll have some of the other ustads on hand as well, inshallah. Once you've turned to page 45, if you look up at me, then I'll know that you're ready and that you're not reading the rest of the booklet. So that means the focus is still here. Actually, at this stage, let me just take an opportunity to mention that. Obviously, for this particular session, we're using the booklet, and inshallah, we're going to work together on an interactive basis. There might be other sessions where they're not using the booklet. At those sessions, please keep the book close. You know, when someone is going to be speaking, when it be one of the other ustads, when they're doing a session which doesn't require the booklet, it is not good etiquette to be reading that while someone's speaking. But obviously, in this particular session, we are going to be using it as well. So what I'd like everyone to do, and this is for each and every single one of you to do this, and know this, that this book is whose? It's your book. No one else is going to look at it. No one's going to take a peek at it. So it's for you to write. And again, I will always bring you back to your focus as to why you came here. Each of you have given up how many days? 4 days, yeah? Of what? Of your life or my life? Of your life. You've given up 4 days of your life to be here with a particular solid objective. So therefore, take everything that we do here seriously. Don't just think, oh, you know, what's the point of writing something? What does it really mean? I know the answer. Don't have that type of attitude. Have the attitude of a real serious student. That you're here, you've given up 4 days of your life, and you're going to do everything that's asked of you to really take this on. So the first, my first request is, so in point 1, the question asks, how is your body relationship with Allah? Am I disobeying Allah with my, and it lists those 7 organs that I've mentioned. What I would like each and every single one of you to do is that for each of those organs, write 2 sins or 2 things that you do that are in the disobedience of Allah. So, for example, one of the brothers mentioned with the tongue speaking ill of someone. What else could someone use their tongue in disobeying Allah? Give me another example. Brother at the back. Swearing, absolutely. Someone said lying. And so forth. So do the same with the eyes, and then the ears and the hands and the feet. And inshallah we'll come to each one. So each of you, and the way I want you to do it is just think of the first thing that comes to your mind. You know, don't elaborate too much, but do take a moment, a bit of focus to do that, inshallah. If anyone has any questions, raise your hand, or if you want to speak to one of the Ustad privately while you're doing this, you know, Ustad Sajid and Dr. Shah Alam are both here as well. So just raise your hands and they'll come over. Now, as you're doing that, I'll ask someone, just give me an example. How can someone use their eyes to disobey Allah? Just raise your hands, inshallah. Yes, brother. Looking at women. Yes, looking at the opposite gender, non-mahram. Another example? Yes, brother. Looking at Muslims in a bad way. Yeah, yeah. What, with jealousy, you mean, or something? Or looking down at them. Okay, sure. Yeah, that one of the people brother mentioned, looking at, you know, inappropriate programs, so forth. Obviously, don't peek at your neighbour or anything like that. That'll be an issue with the eyes as well. uncle at the back. Listening to music, yes. Walking to bad places. So give me an example. Pubs, cinemas, Old Trafford. Actually, be careful. There's a lot more manuscripts, I think. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. So basically, it's where you're walking towards some place that is going to cause or elicit some form of sin. So going to like a club or a pub, even going to a cinema, for example, all of these things, depending on where you're going, it can be used in disobeying Allah. So it's a good example for the feet. Anyone else got any questions on any ones that they're struggling with or any blanks? Okay, hands. Can someone give me an example of how you can use your hands to disobey Allah? Yes, brother.
Swearing at people with
Hand gestures, yes. Anything else? Fighting. Unnecessarily, yes.
giving false statements, claiming wrong things.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good one. You know, I benefit fraud. You know, signing illegally about something. I making a false statement. Yes, brother. Yeah, yeah. All correct. All good examples. That's the hands. Feet. We've done stomach. How can you disobey Allah with your stomach? At this point, I'll breathe in slightly. But, sorry, brother. Eating too much. Yes. Eating the wrong food. Uncle, what do you mean by eating the wrong food? Non-halal, yes. Eating haram food. MashaAllah. Anything else, Brother Teek? Yeah. Okay, so the brother here mentions, this comes under one of the other ones, but he's saying that when you've got unlawful earnings, you use that to purchase something, you're consuming that. That's a good one, but we'll come to talk about that just as a separate section as well. And then finally, stomach modesty. How can you use your private parts, your organs, to disobey Allah? Brother? Standing up and urinating, yes. Yes. Not, exposing your private parts unnecessarily. Anything else? G? Okay, having illicit relations with a non-mahram, yeah. Fornications and the like. Okay, so has everyone completed that exercise? It's slightly easier for me if I ask, has anyone not completed that exercise? Put your hand up. Anyone struck? Yes, brother. You're still doing it? Okay, no, bismillah. Okay. Anyone else? Now, can someone... Brother Abdurrahman, yes.
Would not eating enough be a sin of the stomach?
Not eating enough? It depends. If you're not eating enough that puts you in bad health, then it can be. Now, here's a question. Why am I spending time, why are you spending time writing these down? We could have just spoken about it, couldn't we? Why are you writing it down?
I can look at them when I go home as well, and also it gives me really visually that I can see I have sins on my account.
Yes, yes. Brother, you were going to say something? It stays in your mind, absolutely. But both of those answers are absolutely correct. And the word that I like that Uncle Iqbal mentioned is the word I. It's not a word that generally I'd say I would like, but it's sins that are pertaining to you. There are issues that are relevant for you, whether it's Abdullah, whether it's Tom, Dick, Harry, whatever it might be, it's your issues that you're having, it's your sins. I can sit here collectively and say, doing this with your tongue is bad, doing this with your eyes is bad, but the two that you're picking for each of these organs are ones that are causing you issues. So that's why it's really important while you're putting it on paper, you're visualizing it, and one of the key things is you're becoming cognizant. What do I mean by that? Is that your mind's becoming conscious. You actually think to yourself, actually, yes, I shouldn't be lying, even though you might be in such a bad habit of lying that every other word is an F word or something like that. Here, by you putting it down, it helps. It helps visualize that and focus in your mind, inshallah. So on that note, we're going to move on to the next obstacle, which is your mind's relationship with Allah. So we're still within you category, i.e. your body, your mind, your soul, your heart. But we're just going to focus on a second for your mind. And the key questions that I'm asking you to look at here is, One is, do you entertain thoughts against Allah's commands? And do you think bad of other Muslims? Are you heedless of the remembrance of Allah? And again, how often? And do you practice more negative thinking or positive thinking? And what I want you to do for each of these, and again, we'll do some examples together to make it easier, is that I want you to mark yourself out of 100, i.e. out of 100%. So for example, do I entertain thoughts against Allah's command? If you think that in your waking hour, so for 16 hours of the day when you're awake, do you find that actually I more often than not are doing things or thinking about sins or doing things against the commands of Allah? So then give yourself a percentage. Well, if 70% of the time of my day is consisted of, I don't really want to pray, I want to commit this sin, or I want to do all this type of stuff, then that's going to ratchet that number up. And likewise, and we'll go through each one. So I gave an example there, entertaining thoughts against Allah's command. What else could be entertaining thoughts against Allah's commands? Brother behind Uncle Iqbal. Has everyone got name badges? You have? Okay. Can you just flash it forward so I can see who it is, so I can pick people? Oh, that's okay. So brother, the brother behind you. Sorry, yeah. Nizam. And the brother behind you? Hamza. MashaAllah. Hamza, what do you think in terms of, what do you think would be, thoughts that you would have against Allah's command? Things with your mind? Or anyone can help Brother Hamza. Gee, brother. Potentially, depending on what that kind of dunya-related issue is. But I want something more focused than that, something that is relevant to you. Anyone else?
Could be people questioning the existence of Allah.
Questioning the existence of Allah. Anything else? Questioning the laws, are you? Or thinking about how to violate those laws. Are you, when you're thinking about committing a sin? So what comes to your mind, when your thoughts against Allah's commands? That's what the key thing is. Allah's commands are what? Pray, do X, do zakat, do hajj, all of those things. Don't swear, don't lie. All of those things are the commands of Allah. Yes, uncle at the back. Not remembering Allah, sorry. Remembering Allah. Yes. So, but here we're looking at thoughts against Allah's commands. Does that make sense? Okay, so, Brother Shafiq.
Basically, anything that is against Sharia, if your thoughts are against the Sharia, then you're thinking against Allah.
Absolutely. So the question for you is what? Is that how often do you have those thoughts? How often do you contemplate that? Are you thinking against the commands of Allah? So that's the question that's being asked of you. If not very often, then that's fine. Put that as a percentage, hardly ever. But whatever is relevant again for you. So just again, take a couple of moments to do that, and then we'll move on to the next two together. So brothers, what was the next one? Can someone read it off the board or off their books? Do I think bad of other Muslims? What does that mean? What does it mean to you? Looking down upon other people? Absolutely, yes, with arrogance. Being jealous of others. If they're praying, what are you thinking? Oh, they're doing it for some other reason, or I know that they're not really that pious. All of those type of thoughts. When there's a negative thought against a fellow Muslim, and don't think about some Muslim, some Abdullah that lives, in 40 streets away. The chances are it's going to be people that are around you, your friends, your family, your neighbours, people that you might be jealous of, people that you interact with. That's the people that you should focus on. Do you think negatively? It might even be your own brother or your sister. It might be your wife, your mum, your dad. All of those type of people in your close circle. Do I think bad of them? Do I entertain negative thoughts of them? Again, if you do, then again, give yourself a number out of 100%. Is it more often than not? Less often? Maybe 50% of the time, not so much. Give yourself and assign yourself a number. And remember, this is for you. It's not for anyone else. No one else is going to look at your books. And then, do I practice more negative thinking or positive thinking? This is a really interesting one. So can someone, or maybe I'll give an example and then you can help me. So this is basically asking you, are you a positive or a negative thinker? So there's a group of you, you're sitting with your friends, there's a last piece of pizza left, and someone takes it. What is your reaction going to be to that person? Are you going to think, I wanted that pizza, he just did me over, he only paid for, he didn't even pay for it, it was my treat. What kind of thoughts go through your mind? Or do you think, alhamdulillah, I'm glad that he had it, he was more hungry than I was? Or actually, I'm putting on a few stones, so it's probably best that he has it and I don't have it. All of those type of thoughts. How are you? Do you think negatively or do you think more positively? And think of scenarios in your life. That's always, I'm sitting right here, right now. Have a think. How many of you are thinking positively or negatively of each other? People that you're interacting with. That's the best way to kind of think. Sorry, did someone have a question here? No? Okay, inshallah. So just spend a few moments. If you need any other examples, then say so. Or someone else give me an example. Give me an example of if you're thinking more negative or positive. Yes, uncle.
Negative thought comes into your mind about, say, you're going somewhere and you're going to that occasion or event and you start thinking about how they're going to see me and etc., how they're going to treat me. But then you counter thoughts come into it and say, look, it's a thought from nafs or shaitan. Then this is the struggle you are in all the time.
So,
When that happens, I think you're more of a positive.
agreed, absolutely. So don't worry about those type of scenarios. That's not. I wouldn't constitute that as negative thinking. It's when it's fully negative and you're not giving yourself a counter. So when the brother who took the pizza, and he just you're not giving a positive opinion. You're just thinking, I paid for that and he's just eating it. Does it make sense? It's that type of negative thing. Again, now give yourself a percentage. And the final one on the mind is, how much time in your waking, during the waking day, do you spend time reflecting upon creation? What do I mean by this? What is the question asking? Brother Muslim.
How much you reflect on the trees and how it's connected to Allah and about nature and how it relates to things like that.
Yes, absolutely. So who raise your hand if anyone here has young children. Not very many. Yeah, what do children ask sometimes? Why what? Why? Absolutely, they answer, why is the tree so big? Why is the sun shining? Why is it so bright? Why is it night? Why does the moon look like that? Everything, they're constantly pondering on creation. And they're genuinely asking, not to be annoying, however annoying it might be if you have young children. That's a genuine question from them. You know? Why this? Why that? Where's Allah? Why did Allah do that? They have this thirst about creation, about everything that they come in contact with. You know? And yet the Quran is asking us to constantly reflect upon creation. Constantly. You know, the Quran is constantly full of reminders, again and again. So again, now take your time and think, how much time do you spend reflecting upon creation? Is it 10% of your day? Is it 50% of your day? Is it just 1% of your week? You know? Is this the first time you've done it in a very long time? I don't know. I mean, just be true to yourself and write your answers in your book. Any questions on that session? Or that section, brother? Yes, brother? Oh, no, I didn't say that. Apologies. The brother just mentioned, alhamdulillah, one person that's been paying attention, which worries me about the rest of you. On your book, it says, on under 2, 1, 2, 3, it says, am I heedless of Allah's remembrance and how often? Can everyone else see that? I'm assuming your good opinion of me was that you all answered that anyway. But obviously, please make sure you answer that as well. Am I heedless of Allah's remembrance and how often? Are you, do you just, just not remember Allah at all in your waking day? And again, if you, I'm not asking anyone to raise their hands, but if you pray or you don't pray, even if you pray, ask yourself, how many times do you actually think of Allah though when you are praying? How many times? It's like people that go to the graveyard. People here travel to Morocco and Fez. Sometimes the question I like to ask is, when you're at a graveyard, how many times did you actually think about death? It's the same when you're praying. Even though you're praying to Allah, how many times did you actually think about Allah during that prayer? Dr. Shah, sorry, do you guys want to just go outside? 'Cause I can hear. Inshallah, so just have a think around that. Okay, so of all those questions in mind, has everyone written something on their books? Has anyone not written anything down? I'm not going to inspect it, don't worry. But inshallah. Okay, so moving on to the next. We're still on blockage 1, just to be clear. It's still about you. It's just the next entity, which is your heart. And again, so the questions that we're going to ask here, and we go through each one, is you're looking at your heart's relationship with Allah. And the questions that are posed is, are you more humble or more arrogant? Are you more grateful or more ungrateful? Are you more patient or more impatient? And how often do you repent? So let's take each of these. And again, you have to be true to yourself. So someone give me an example. What would demonstrate to you whether you are more humble or more arrogant? Brother at the back. Show appreciation for what you have. Okay, that's good. Brother Muslim? Sorry, say that again. You answer that as humble. Doesn't that show you that you're not humble? Are you trying to ask me what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, no, but be true to yourself. This isn't one of those scenarios where you're publicly being asked, Muslim, you're so great. No, I'm really not. I think I am, but I'm really not. Be absolutely true. If you genuinely believe that you are humble, but this is why I always say, come back to an example in your life, or a moment in your life that if someone praises you, or if someone doesn't. Always think about close personal relationships. If someone doesn't give you salam, if you feel offended, why did you feel offended? If someone's not really speaking to you, why did you not go over to give salam to them? Because they were beneath you, or you felt because they didn't give it to me, therefore, those are the type of scenarios around you. Yes, brother at the back. Shafiq. So, they say generally things are known by their opposites. And so the example that we're effectively asking here is, without going into a technical definition, for each and every single one of you, we're not asking, we'll come on to the being grateful and not grateful. But the question is the arrogance versus humbleness. Arrogance is, are you more arrogant? Do you think you're above a certain thing? Or versus when you're being more humble, where you think you're beneath someone else or beneath something. Now, take it to what it means to you, because there's no point in me applying a definition which you may never have heard of before. So take what humbleness means to you and apply that to yourself, and then answer that question. And equally with arrogance. And if it does cross over with whether we come to do grateful and more ungrateful, that's fine. This isn't a strict science here. All I'm asking each and everyone here to do is just engage their brain, and just to engage themselves, just to become a bit more cognizant, a bit more alive to how am I engaging with people? How am I with people? Yes, brother?
someone, shopkeeper, sees, could I have something? Be arrogant. Hey, give me this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And again, so that's what it means to you, absolutely, and that's what you should do.
Interact with people every day.
Yes, no, exactly. And with all of these things, it's going to be your interaction with people that's going to determine it. So inshallah, just think about that. And then we'll go to the next one, which is, are you more grateful or more ungrateful? Now again, a lot of this comes down, so I'll give you an example. For example, if you're at work, if you work in the corporate world, you get a pay rise. What's your reaction to that pay rise? Is a reaction, alhamdulillah, whatever they gave me, you're grateful for it? Or is it, actually, I should have got more? Or you know, if someone asks you, how was your pay rise? It wasn't that great. Equally about whatever you're earning right now. Are you grateful what other earnings that you're given? Or you were saying, well, you know, I'm just making ends meet. The way that you're going to, it's not going to be by the definition, it's going to be a way, it's going to be by your mannerisms. So if I was speaking to a brother Abdullah, brother Tom, brother Dick, Harry, whatever, and I ask him, you know, how are you doing? How's your work? How much are you earning? Whatever it might be. And if they're saying, oh, I'm just making ends meet, or alhamdulillah, I'm grateful. You can see that question is to you. Are you being grateful or ungrateful about what you're being given? So again, think about examples that pertain to you, i.e. that are individual to you, and just answer that question. Do you think you're more or less? And rate yourself, for example. You know, I'm 60% more grateful. Whatever is good for you to measure. And the next one, which is, are you more patient or impatient? Now again, you have to apply it to yourselves. The good one is, how many of you here are married? Hands a bit more than children. Okay, mashallah. How patient are you with your other half? Or how impatient? This isn't about how impatient are you with the guest or with the teacher or with the scholar. We're all patient. We're all Sufis when it comes to that. You know, with the best of adabs come out. I'm not asking about that. I'm asking, how patient are you with your spouse? If you live with your mum and dad, how patient are you when your mum says to you, go get something from me from Asda? You know, or how impatient are you? Measure it on that. Measure it on people that are close to you, and then answer that question. And finally, in the 24 hours or 16 hours when you're awake, just ask yourself, how often do you repent? What do we mean by that? I'm talking about genuine, thoughtful repentance. So not the repentance that happens just after Salah and you say, Allah Akbar, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, and that's it. You know, Allah forgive me, forgive. I'm talking about when you really deeply say, and you truly repent when you know that you've done something wrong during the day. If you don't even acknowledge your sins, so if you just ask Allah for forgiveness at the end of the day, Allah forgive me, after you pray, but you haven't in your mind for a moment engaged, what are you asking Allah for forgiveness? Oh Allah, all the sins that I know I've committed and not committed. Well, how many of them did you know? How many of them did you actually think about before you asked Allah for that repentance? That's part of the hikmah why we're getting people to write things down. Because it makes you think about how much you value Allah when you're asking something of Him. So when you answer that question, please have that in mind, how often you repent. I genuinely ask Allah, acknowledging the sins that you have. So inshallah, would you, again, these questions, just more to prompt you. So this is your soul's relationship with Allah. So we look at the body, mind, heart, and we're just looking at the soul. You know, how often in 24 hours do you spend in the presence of Allah? Can someone tell me what I mean, or what you think the question means when it says, in the presence of Allah? If I pray 5 times a day, am I in the presence of Allah 5 times a day? Yes or no? Put your hands up if the answer is yes. Put your hands up if the answer is no. So everyone who did not put their hand up, please put your hand up. And explain to me why. Was I not clear in the question, or was it?
So
Good, thank you. MashaAllah. That shows me an engaged audience. Yeah? And brother, what's your name? Sufyan, MashaAllah. I like the fact that he said the question was clear. I know what I'm putting down on my humble sheet. So no, absolutely. So the questions, it all depends, doesn't it? I might pray 5 times a day, but I might not be present with Allah at all throughout that entire period. So presence of Allah is when you know that that Allah is what? We normally have these 3 keys that individuals refer to, but they mean something. Allah is Basir, Allah is Samir, Allah is all seeing, Allah is all hearing. You know, how many times are you cognizant that Allah is with you, that He's watching you, that He's closer to you than your jugular vein? Those are the type of things that I'm asking you. How present are you with Allah? Are you your soul? If you are, then your soul is. So that's the first thing. So in 24 hours, just give yourself a number. 5 minutes out of every 60, 5 minutes out of every 24 hours, 5 minutes out of every 48 hours. I don't know. Whatever the answer is to you, just put the answer down. The next question is, do you love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than your parents, your spouse, children, and yourself? Now, I'm not going to ask anyone to put their hand up on that, but can someone tell me what a good measure is to know whether if you love something more than anyone else? Brother on the chair. Adopting the sunnah, I like that. Anyone else? Brother? Obedience to what? To the Messenger of Allah. Obedience in what? In the commands of Allah, or obedience to His sunnah? Obedience to His sunnah. Okay, the brother said, so one brother said adopting the sunnah, another one said being obedient to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Brother? What's on your mind more? That's interesting, I like that. You know, how much is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on your mind, brother? Giving preference to the sunnah. That's another really good one. So the question here is quite simple. The way you know what you love more is there's a real simple principle that they say, and this is a principle as to why when the Prophet ﷺ and Umar radiallahu anh, the famous hadith, when Umar radiallahu anh came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, I can love you more than my parents, more than my children, but I can't say that I love you more than me. Firstly, that is profound, just that interaction in itself. Because the blessed Umar radiallahu anh tells us so much. Firstly, that he tells us that the love of the self is immense. You know, however much we might say, oh, we're humble and so forth, the love of the self is immense. But also, it goes to his faruqness, i.e. the fact that he was al-faruq, that he spoke the truth. But it's quite interesting that then, obviously, as we all know, the Prophet ﷺ then said, then your faith is incomplete. Not that he lacks faith, it's just incomplete. And then, mashallah, again, profound that he then said, I love you more than everything. But the reason you ask it is a very simple principle. It's that if you love anything more than the Prophet ﷺ, that at some point in your life, something else and that which the Prophet loved will come to a clash. And the thing that you love more, that's what will override. That's the same principle with Allah. That's the same principle with your parents. That's with anything that you love, that it will come to a point. So when it's your parents asking you, don't hang around with that person or whatever it might be. Yeah, the thing that you prefer more, you will pick. That's always going to be the case. And that's the same with the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The reason that you have to love him the most is that at some point in your life, a clash will happen. Whether that's when that clash happens, if you love money a lot, and then the clash will come that the money that you're saying maybe doesn't engage with the way of the sunnah, or you don't want to give zakat, or whatever it might be. When that clash happens, that which you love more is always going to win out. So that's why we always say that's why the Prophet says that if you love him more than everything else, then he will always win when that clash occurs. So just, again, have that in your mind when you answer that question, because that will truly tell you, because adopting the sunnah, yes, but some aspects of sunnah are very easy. For me, to adopt the sunnah in a mosque, when I'm just surrounded by Muslims, is a very easy thing to do. You know? But when I'm out and about, and that sunnah is now being challenged, you know, how much do I really love the Prophet ﷺ? or whatever it might be. Being, when I'm being challenged in terms of, I say that I'm lovely to people, but when it's someone in my family that I'm not speaking to, really how much, when the Prophet said, love your family, having that kind of, the need for them, how much does that really manifest itself? And then the next point it says is, do you yearn to save the ummah from Jahannam, or are you always thinking about yourself? Firstly, are you even thinking about saving yourself from Jahannam? But, the question is it selfless or selfish? And then finally, just pose this question to yourself. Are you a slave to your feelings, or are your feelings your slave? So if you feel like doing something, do you do it? Or not? Okay, so everything that we've spoken about so far, the body, the mind, the heart, and the soul, that all relates to which obstacle? Obstacle 1. Now we're going to move on to obstacle 2. Inshallah, it goes a bit. We pick up a bit more speed. Now the first, so this is something that for each and every single person do today, is that when we complete this, inshallah, just do 2 rak'ah salatul tawbah and beg Allah for forgiveness for disobedience to the body, the mind, heart, and the soul. Because you've just spent the last hour in your mind becoming alive to the fact that your body, whether it's your tongue, your eyes, your mind, they all are being or can be disobedient to Allah. You've picked examples that you know that you're being disobedient to Allah. Now you're being asked simply that you've done that step, you've done that acknowledgement, which puts the difference of heaven and earth between you and the next person. Now just go that extra mile or that extra second and do 2 rak'ah salatul tawbah and ask Allah to forgive you for those things you put on the piece of paper and more. But as a minimum of those things you put on that piece of paper, and make intention that you're going to try to refrain from committing those sins. Okay, we're moving on to the next obstacle, which is your relationship with Allah. Now I've listed them all here, and not all of them are going to be relevant, but I just want to go through them for the benefit. So this is all about certainty, how your belief in Allah. So if you start at number 1, it says ilmul yaqeen. Now this is the knowledge of certainty, and I'm going to go through each one in a bit more detail. But the bit I want to just draw your attention to is the number 4. What does that say? Someone? Sorry? Number 4. Ainul yaqeen. Why am I bringing your attention to that? What is Ainul yaqeen? Seeing. Tasting. That's the whole point of why you're here. That is to get you to that level of certainty. I.e. to believing in Allah, your soul having that relation with Allah because you've seen something of the spiritual realm. That's the yaqeen level we're seeking to get everyone in this retreat to. I.e. that you believe in Allah because of what you've seen. So now we'll go through each one. And you can just, on the chart that you have, not all of them will be relevant, but if you notice, it says it gives you a number out of what? Out of 10, yeah? So just rate yourself out of 10 on these levels of yaqeen. So ilmul yaqeen, this is the fact that you believe in Allah from a reliable source, and you have no doubt, such as the Quran or the Sunnah. That's normal standard belief for most Muslims, that you believe in the word of Allah, you believe in the Quran, you believe in the Hadith. Yeah? And then again, how strong is your belief? How many people here, one brother asked a question that some people, they question the Quran, they question Hadith. So you also have a level, or even on that, ilmul yaqeen. How strong is it? Then we have aql yaqeen. This is intellectual certainty, and this comes from logical proof through scientific things. So this is the basics, that someone says the Quran mentions, the level of chromosomes. It all depends, all that talks about the water cycle. Certain things that you've come through in the Quran that appeal to your intellect and therefore give you intellectual certainty in Islam. Yeah? And rate yourself to how much you think. So some people are very interested in that, all the scientific proofs that the Quran has. Multitude of them. But it strengthens people's beliefs. Some people have such strong belief in Islam because of that. It appeals to that element of them. And rate yourself. Then there's qalbul yaqeen, which is your heart, the thing that you can't quite always touch. But this is when you can't prove this to someone, but in your heart you believe. And this is where some people might be traveling, and we'll explain what traveling means. It's when your soul is experiencing something from another realm. That you've experienced something angelic maybe, something spiritual. You may not be able to explain it to someone, but it's when you know for a fact, your heart knows that this is the truth. I know I was there, or I know I felt something. And people go through that. The word is like in transience. Sometimes they have moments of that in their life. And then there's Ainul Yaqeen. This is the certainty. This is when you see things through the spiritual eye. And then this is what this entire retreat is, as a minimum, seeking to get every single person in this room to that level. And it'd be interesting to see. Some people have experiences on maybe a sporadic basis throughout their life. And again, you can rate yourself. And the next ones are more for information only. It's not ones that I'm necessarily asking you to put down. But this is, you also have Nafsul Yaqeen. This is the soul, the nafs is now inclined towards goodness due to what it's seen on the Ainul Yaqeen. So this is what one of the rewards of Ainul Yaqeen is. So if you start seeing things, then you actually are now inclined to goodness because of what you've seen. When you see the angelic realms, when you see the women of Jannah, all of those type of things, you're now inclined in that direction because of what you've seen. And then you have Ruhul Yaqeen, the certainty of the spirit. This is when the Ruh witnesses, and this is a higher level. And then Haqqul Yaqeen, this is when the Ruh experiences and tastes. And again, some of these we're going to go into a bit more detail when we do the methodology of the Ascension and the Miraj. And Haqqul Yaqeen, this is when you actually interact in the spiritual world and you learn things from the Anbiya and the Mashaykhs. There's one thing reading the Quran, and there's one thing when you are taught certain meanings of Hadith and Quran directly. So that was regarding the second obstacle, i.e. your spiritual relationship with Allah. And now we're going to move on to the third one, which is major life problems. So can someone give me an example of a major life, not their own necessarily example, but just an example? What could be a major life problem? G. Being sacked, the brother said. From Waitrose, from where? Just from being sacked from your job. That could be a major distraction, a major life problem for someone. Any other examples? Losing a loved one, absolutely. Anything else? Health can be a big one. Being diagnosed with something. Debt could be something. You know, having all of these, something major that's in your life. Now, what I want each and every one of you to do is write down 2 major life problems you are going through. Now, for one of you here in this room, a major life problem might be absolutely debilitating, i.e. you can't think, that's all constantly on your mind. For someone else, it might not be as extreme, but it's still a problem that you're going through. So in your own life, on your own spectrum, just write down 2 major life problems you are going through, which you feel, and that's really key, which you feel are blocking or distracting you from Allah. Yeah. So pick 2. Everyone writing? Or are some people thinking, oh, that's all right, I've got it in my mind, I don't need to write? Now here's an interesting one. Once you've done that, can you write down a solution for each one? Any particular problem with this particular question? Yes, brother. Good. That's exactly the question that I wanted. You might not have a solution. Some people probably do know what the solution is. Some people might not. So if you don't have a solution, then one of the things that we'll do throughout this retreat is that you have an opportunity to sit with certain ustads throughout the period, and there's something that you can ask them or speak to them about. So either, and some people do have the solution, it's just they never actioned it. They never kind of sat down and contemplated, actually, what is the solution to this problem? So whichever scenario it is, either you do have the solution, and now I'm asking you to write it down, or if you don't, then ask someone that can help. Because that's half the solution there when you ask for help. And if not the Ustad, write down someone that you will ask help for. That's the other thing. Yeah. If you don't have the solution, put down someone's name. If it's, obviously you'll get a chance to speak to the Ustads, but if it's someone that you know, well, I don't have the solution, but I think if I go somewhere here, or if I go somewhere there, they will have the solution. Or they can direct me. And then inshallah, again, at some point, whether it's tonight or after you wake up, do 2 rak'ah salat al-hajat and beg Allah to resolve these problems for you and in acting up on the solutions. You're asking who to resolve the issues? Allah. You're making it. You know what you're doing when you're asking Allah to resolve something? Do you know what you're doing with your problem? You're making it whose problem? Yes. And is it a problem that Allah can't resolve? No. La shak wa la rayb. There is no doubt about that. There is no problem that Allah can resolve. So take your problem and make it Allah's problem. Give it over to Allah and say, Allah, can you resolve this for me? Because I can't. So just do that. Acknowledge that. And so 2 salat al-hajat for that. So that's major life problems. And these can be really, really distracting from Allah. Unlawful wealth. Now, 2 questions here. One, are you earning wealth in a haram way? Can someone give me an example of how you can earn wealth in a haram way? Brother Abdul Rahman. Earning wealth from gambling, yes, brother? Selling alcohol, classic, absolutely, brother? Engaging in interest. But how are you earning? I want to know more. Fraud. But also if you're earning interest, that's obviously one as well. So we've got fraud, we've got gambling, we've got selling alcohol. Criminal activities, fraud is also criminal activity, drug dealing included, benefit fraud, all of those type of things. It depends what you're lying about. So perhaps, if someone does have an individual question, I'm more than happy to pick it up with them separately, yeah? But there's 2 types of lying. One is lying when you're saying to the benefit office that I'm not working and you are. And then there's a lying when, you've taken a 20-minute break to go to the toilet as opposed to a 5-minute break, and you said to your boss, whatever. So there's something that I'm more than happy to sit down with someone and speak to them. But the key things, but you've listed a whole load very, very quickly, and those are fundamental blockages to Allah and to unveilings. But again, we're going to talk about a solution here that even if you're engaged in this type of activity, it's not necessarily a bar, or it's not a blocker for you not to be able to resolve this at this retreat. It can still be done. Next question is, are you spending wealth in any haram ways? Can someone give me an example, please? Brother.
Buying porn material.
Buying what material?
Porn.
Oh, porn material, absolutely. Absolutely. Spending your haram to commit sin, that's absolutely one. Anything else? Spending at the casino, again, same principle. Exactly. Are you spending your wealth in haram ways? Now write down the solution for each one. Again. If anyone has any questions on this, do raise your hands, inshallah. Dr. Shah? I appreciate this is one of the more tougher sessions because you've just got here today. And I know I am the thing that is between you and your bed right now. So, inshallah, just bear with it. Do that mujahidah. You're here for a particular purpose, for a reason. So what will you do today? Inshallah, again, do 2 rakat salat al-hajat. Beg Allah to resolve this problem and for help with solution. Now, listen to my words very carefully when I say this, that you may be or I may be earning in a haram way. And I might be sitting here right now, sitting in front of you thinking, well, how on earth do I get out of this? Because I have a family to feed, you know, I have a lifestyle to live up to, whatever it might be. You know, and I'm not really paying attention to what's being said. So because I've kind of already dismissed it, because I thought to myself, it's too big an issue, I can't address it. If you are in that boat right now, then I'm really sincerely saying this to you, that, and to myself, that if you are in any way trapped in any terms of haram earnings or haram ways, then even if the solution is as simple as change my job, if that's what he says, stop committing benefit fraud, write it down. Even if you're thinking, oh, but I can't do that, write it down, and then to your 2 rakah salat al-hajat. Have that faith in Allah that He can resolve it. So if you are caught up in any of this, I'm genuinely asking, don't just dismiss it instantly. Think about this and put in your mind what the solution is, and then, inshallah, when we have the opportunity, we will do opportunity to salat al-hajat, then ask Allah to help resolve that. Yeah. And we're almost done. We're on number 5, marital problems. I laugh for a reason. Are you going through any major issues in your marriage that is distracting you from Allah? So question 1 is, are you going through that? It technically applies to if you're married, first and foremost. Now, this is really, really important. Write down a solution for each one. So if you've got 2 major issues, 3 major issues, whatever there might be, just pick 2 or 3. Write down a solution for each one, and this must be something that you can do, not your spouse. That's the problem. The amount of times people will say, yeah, if she does this, then I won't have a problem. If she sorts this out, then, or if he sorts it out, I won't. It's not about the other person. I'm asking you to put down a solution, something that you can do that can resolve the matter. Even if you believe they're 100% at fault, even if they talk too much, they do this, they do that. But what I'm asking you is, what can you do to resolve the matter? That's the question that's being put to you here. And again, to echo as before, we'll do 2 rakah salat al-hajat, to resolve these problems, inshallah. And then, similar to the marital ones, this is for, are you going through any major issues in any of your relationships? And this is with your parents, siblings, friends, or colleagues. Now, this is really important, especially within a community like ours. We have extended families, small families. This is really, really important. We have people that might be going through issues, might not be speaking to relatives. You might be, I don't know, whatever issues that kind of kick up, whether it's issues from your country of origin and land, or whatever it might be here, spousal issues, divorce issues, something that has led to a disintegration within the family. Are you going through any of those issues, business partner issues, business issues? If you are, pick 2 or 3, and then write down a solution for each person. So if there's an issue with your parents, your siblings, and your friend, if there's someone for each of those categories, then write an issue in each of those categories, and then write a solution. And especially those of you who are living with your parents, really, I ask again, reflect on that. Are you having any issues with your parents or your siblings that you think you should be thinking of a solution to? Because it would and it can be a big bar to getting closer to Allah. And then again, as I mentioned, 2 rakah salat al-hajat, and then beg Allah to resolve these problems. And now, the final piece that we're going to come to. Before I move on to this one, this is the... does anyone have any questions on anything else that we've covered? No questions on any of the other ones? Now, I said to you that ordinarily in the retreats I've done before, how many obstacles are usually listed? And it's on your book, actually. How many are listed in your book? 6. In this particular retreat, the teacher, or the mashaykhs, for which we should always be eternally grateful, have listed a 7th obstacle. And it's an obstacle that manifests. When I say manifest, I mean it's something that only becomes apparent during the retreat. What is it? It's a problem that only becomes apparent during the retreat. And there's a reason why we never used to cover it before, because you wouldn't really come across it until you're on the retreat. And I've put this on the board. What have I written on the board? Submission. What do you think the slide means by that? What's the blockage? Following what you're told? Anything else? Yeah. One of the key things that comes up again and again when people are doing it, and it's now, can I just ask everyone to really, really pay attention? All of these blockages are really important, but this is one of those blockages, or one of those key moments where if this 1 point is won, then they all are won. And if you lose on this 1 point, then all is lost. Yeah? That's the seriousness of this particular one. And it's all around the point of submission. That the teacher, or whatever you have been asked to do here, that you submit to it wholeheartedly. And let me give you an example, if I may. Now, and I'm going to give you a personal, so just a personal example, relate to the dunya. Why the dunya? Why am I giving a dunya example? It's easy to relate to. We like the dunya. We engage in it. It's something that we have an affinity with. Now, the example I'll give you is quite simple, and it's an example where, so I speak personally about my own experience. So after university, I read law, I done my exams, and after university I went to do my bar exams. I did my bar exams and I qualified as a barrister, and then I went on and I was advised that I wanted to specialise in a particular area of law, tax specifically. And at Chambers, someone advised me that if this is an area you want to specialise in, there's another qualification that you can get. It's a difficult one. It's called to become a chartered tax advisor on top of all my other exams that I've done. But the issue with this one, in amongst the financial world, it's known as the gold standard qualification. Why is it the gold standard qualification? Because that in any one sitting, when people sit this exam, only 36% of the participants pass. So out of 100 people sitting, only 36% pass. Now that might be, and that includes people that might be sitting it for the 10th time or the 11th time. I thought, okay, that's fine, and I went down that route, and I thought, I want to do that, that's an area that I want to get into. So I was with my firm, and they pay for all the teaching and all that kind of stuff that you do. Now, the concern that I had was this, is that how do I ensure that I fall within that 36%? Because this wasn't, because the people that, my peers weren't peers like, anyone off the street. These are people that have gone to university. Many of them were Oxbridge or Russell Group University graduates. So people that knew their things, knew how to study, and yet they're not getting through this. They're not falling always within the 36%. And I came across a particular course that I could attend, and a retreat, in fact, in Oxford, in this grand manor house that I pay to attend over a weekend. And this particular tutor, his name Norman something, I won't go into details, who taught this, and the reviews were amazing, that he is someone that can get you through that exam. Now, my firm is paying for all my exams, is paying for all my tutelage, but for this particular thing, I have to cough up my own money to go to it. Equally, I have to cough up my own money, and I have to go and spend a weekend at this place in Oxford, amongst people that I do not know, just to engage with this individual to get me through this exam. Now, I did that, and I went up, and I went and paid for it, and I turned up to this kind of grand country manor, and I was going to be there for the weekend. Like you, I paid a bit more than the £40 that you brothers have paid, and gave up a few days of my life to go to this particular thing. But the key thing was here that I had to get to grips very, very quickly, was that my objective to come in there was to learn from someone who was going to get me through those exams. Now, this particular tutor, interesting enough, in terms of knowledge, I perhaps studied a lot more than he had. I knew more law than he did, as a matter of fact. Yeah? But what he had was something that I didn't have. The way to get me through the exam. That was it. That's the reason I've turned up. When I got there, within the first day, I had to realise very quickly that every single thing that I had learned, because I had to think in my own mind that only 36% of people pass the exam. There's no lack of knowledge in the people sitting the exam. There is something else that he can get to me that I can't get from conventional means. So I went And I sat there. And the interesting thing was that he tore up the rule book of anything that I've ever learned. How to approach an exam, he tore it up. How to answer an exam question, he tore it up. His entire method was different. And it was very difficult at the beginning. And I remember sitting with all my peers and, you know, he'll tell us how to do something or how to answer a question. And people would literally say, but, oh, that's not how I learnt it. Oh, that's not what, but we've always been told this. And even I was baffled by it a bit because I was thinking, but whatever people have been telling us, we've been failing with them. This is the person that's going to get you through. We've come to this person to learn from him. And interestingly enough, we had conditions there as well. The conditions, what time we had to get up, what time we had to go to bed. Yet they had, like, you know, as they do in many of these retreats, like an open bar. So a lot of people would probably spend the evening just chilling and kind of gassing and goodness knows what else. Which, again, baffled me. I'm thinking to myself, we paid our money for this. We've come here for a sole objectives. Socialising is the least thing on my list for why I turned up here. Now, this retreat, other than the fact there's a difference between the heavens and the earth, between what I attended and what I'm speaking to you about now, the concept is no different. That you, each and every single one of you, have come here to experience something that whilst it might be read in books, you actually want to achieve it. And all of us have come with different degrees, different levels of knowledge, but equally, just as I had to park all of that at the door before I came in and effectively submit to someone else's schedule, someone else's approach that threw up the rule book for me. This is no different. And whilst I mentioned the word submission, everyone's focus will be is the focus on the other person, i.e. the teacher. We have to submit to them. Really, that's not what I'm actually asking. It's to say, I'm actually saying to you, to myself, that leave your own opinions behind. Leave your own, but that's not how I learnt it. You know, that's not how I've prayed Salah before. But if that's the case, then why are you here? Why have you come to a retreat to experience something if all you're going to do every time you turn up and you're asked to do something is, well, that's not what I've done before. That's not how I meditate. What does that thing mean? It doesn't, who cares? The point is that you are here to learn something, to attain something in 4 days. And someone is here who is saying to you, I can get you that in 4 days, provided you follow what I say. So the solution seems very simple, but when we go through the journey, throughout these 4 days, this is an obstacle that always comes up, that people don't seem to get past that stage until a lot later on. And the sooner you can get to grips with this. So that's why I mention it now, and for some of you it may be theory. Why is he mentioning this? I have no issue with submission. I've come to this retreat. I'm going to be more than happy to submit. But it manifests itself as you go throughout the retreat. That people do have these issues, that they're not quite following the teacher. They're not understanding the concepts, and they're just getting a bit too worried about the evidences. That's a separate retreat. There's more than happy the brothers can deal with that. But what you're here to do is very simple. You're here to experience something, to have an experiential experience of the spiritual world. And you are being told and guided through that. And all you're being asked is then, therefore, everything that you think you knew, park it at the door. Everything that you do know, park it at the door. And that whenever anything that problematic comes to your mind, when it comes to your mind and you're thinking, oh, that's not quite, I know, acknowledge it, say to your mind, okay, and then just park it and say, actually, I'm here to follow someone else. That is the final obstacle that I just wanted to echo and just really, really emphasize for all the participants here. The sooner you can get over that, the quicker. You know, when you're praying your salah, when you do the spiritual salah, you want to have the hazuri of Allah, and people might be asking, but I don't normally close my eyes when I pray salah. Well, how many times do you see the Prophet ﷺ when you pray your salah? You've come here for a particular purpose. So don't ask those questions when you're not attaining that in your daily life. You're here for a particular reason. Whatever you've done before hasn't worked. So let's just try something in these 4 days. However unconventional it may be, however different it might be, just try it. You're here for 4 days, inshallah. I'm going to, inshallah, conclude on that point. But before I do, I just want to open the floor for any questions that people have relevant to what we've spoken about now, inshallah. And something that, and I'm going to be more strict than that. Questions that are going to benefit you and everyone else here as well. Yes, Brother Rolf.
you talked about submission. Is it also holding on to your old teacher? Say the love you have for that teacher you've had for all your life, and then you don't want to let go because of the love you have and respect you have, and you want to experience this, but you want to also hold on to that as well.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's fine. That's a good question. So the brother said that, what about if you have another teacher, you have love for another teacher? So I'm going to give you my example if I can. So I attended the retreat, and in that retreat, I took wholeheartedly from the one teacher that I was there to see. Wholeheartedly. Everything he said, I did. Everything he said, don't do, I didn't do. I took his words right up to my exam, and by the grace of Allah, I passed first time amongst those. Yeah? Every single thing that he said. Did that make me love my other teachers less? The ones that got me through my degree and my bar exam? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that I have any less respect for them or anything like that. But people almost, with respect to this particular, but people almost feel that we only have a bit of love that we can give, and that if anyone else comes into our love, that we have to push out someone else. So I feel sorry for people that have more than one child, because that means that you have a lot of love for your first child, and then another child is born. So do you push out the love for the other child and say, I'm only going to love child number 2 now? Of course not. Any parent who has children here, that the capacity to love is huge. So when this teacher is coming into your life, no one is saying to you, stop loving any other teacher, stop loving any other person or so forth. But what we are saying, what I'm absolutely categorically saying is that when you're here to touch these unveilings, you follow the teacher that is getting you through this, without a shadow of a doubt. Just like I turned up to retreat and I took exactly what I came to take. And that's it, because this is the teacher that is taking you. So you fully, utterly, absolutely submit to the teacher now who is taking you to, or going to assist you to get to the state of Ain al-Yaqeen. Yeah? Yes, absolutely. You can have 100 teachers, 50,000 teachers. Your parents are your teachers. Your colleagues are your teachers. I'm really not trying to be flippant. The brother asked a really good question. But you do have teachers in every aspect, in every walk. When we're talking about this particular retreat, when we are talking about unveilings, when you're talking about seeing, if you want to engage and behold the beauty of the Prophet ﷺ, of the angelic realm, to go through the stations, what Ustaad Sajid was talking about, Muraqabah Muhammadiyah, Muraqabah the Salah, all of these things you're experiencing, then there is only one teacher that you will follow. Yeah? That's it. That's all you're talking. And for these 4 days, just do that. If you have concerns, speak to me about it afterwards, speak to one of the other ustads. But I'm glad actually I raised this now. The sooner you can get over this hurdle, and it's such an academic hurdle, by the way, it really, really is. It's a mental block, it's not a physical block. And the sooner you can get over the mental block, the quicker people will travel. Inshallah. Any other questions?
So you mentioned some of the solutions, praying Salatul Tawbah, about 3 different nafil rakats for Salatul Hajj. I know that we're going to approach rest time, so when do you suppose we do that? Before we go for rest? Or we rest first, prioritise that?
No, because we'll wake up in time for the Tahajjud, so you can do it then, inshallah. But please do it, inshallah. Okay, inshallah, we're going to conclude. Now is going to be rest time, inshallah. The Zafar and admin team will dictate where people are sleeping and the like and what time you're waking up. Please look after those books. It's a working document, which I mean, like, look, I've got mine and I've scribbled all over it. So equally, I need, don't just leave it all. I want to see it used. It needs to be scribbled into, it needs to be looked at, it needs to be read, it needs to be utilised. Please look after it. You've got amals and so forth, other sessions that will require you to have this book and you to utilize it, inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Jazakallah, Ustaad Majid. A couple of things. Firstly, it is obviously rest time now. We're going to call out the names of the brothers who are going to be sleeping upstairs, and they'll, Brother Gulfam will take them up